Hello and welcome to today's Wisdom from the Four Rivers, your numerology quickie focused on Egyptian numerology. My name is Joy Kingsborough. Today's energy is the King of Clubs, which means the wisdom and consciousness stream of the mind has burst into the scene. So the mind, the wisdom, the intellect, the information that wants to move through us based on what we have been experiencing in the world. Essentially, the clubs represents the heart moving up and out into the world. So what you've experienced and what you felt now becomes understanding. And so this understanding now has a drive that wants to share the wisdom with the world. So what you've learned, what you've seen, what you've experienced, there's a desire to share it. And I don't know about you, but I woke up this morning really early, about 2:22. I woke up, looked at my phone and went, oh, it's a little bit early, but I was wide awake. And so I just allowed myself to write and to express whatever was top of mind and coming through for me. And then I quieted the mind and I invited myself back down into the heart. And I proceeded to use a technique that I share with the world called quantum expansion, where I allowed my heart and mind to come into coherence and then to broadcast that frequency out into the world to create on behalf of what I was thinking and feeling. So this is the recommendation for today's energy is seize it, but don't let it run loose. Don't let the mind convince you that the wisdom is more important than the journey that got you here to the wisdom. So the decision to share what you've learned, keep in mind that in order for people to hear and understand, they're going to need to experience it. They're going to need to have an experience of their own in order to cultivate the knowledge. The knowledge doesn't come from reading or listening to a broadcast like this. This is not where the knowledge comes from. The knowledge arises from within you based on your perception of how you're feeling and what is being said, what's being experienced, what that means to you. So, what's the meaning for you? What have you been experiencing during this incredibly powerful season of eclipse? What have you been experiencing since the new moon eclipse? What are you experiencing now as this full moon enters into the world, enters into your experience, and calls you forth beyond what was, that allows you to say goodbye and clear away things that are no longer part of your story as you open up into the new things? What is it that you're feeling? What are you giving meaning to for the future? We've been talking about that for the last week as we make this transition in the next couple of days into the belief in possibility, believing more and more in what you can experience. So what have you been feeling about? What are you thinking about? What's the wisdom that arose? How will you share that wisdom with the world? And how will you continue to experience that, not just talk about it, right? How do we have a breakthrough that's not just mental? How do we have a breakthrough that we believe in? And the last thing I'll say about this is the reason it's so important is oftentimes we can learn things, we have the information, but then we're afraid to go share it with the world. We don't express ourselves. We know something, but we don't feel confident that anybody else wants to hear it. We think, well, they already know that. Or maybe this isn't, maybe it isn't exactly right. Maybe there's more I need to learn. So insecurities arise. But if you invite in the awareness that you experienced this wisdom arising, you've had the experience. You went from a time when you weren't happy and now you are. You went from a time where you felt broke and now you have money flowing. You went from a time where you weren't in a loving relationship to being in a loving relationship. Wherever your journey has taken you, you've had the experience to learn the wisdom. It's not the wisdom itself that changes you, it's how you got to it. So acknowledging, being grateful, and continuing to realize that people around you may not understand what you're saying because they haven't yet had the lived experience. So honoring that and staying with it, staying committed to living it into life, not just knowing it, not just being right, not just shouting it from the rooftops and saying, you should live this way. This is the information. I'm right about this. Just continue to live it and share it through the living example that you bring into the world. It's one thing to know something. It's another thing to live on behalf of the wisdom that you have. All right, I hope you have an amazing day and we'll see you tomorrow.